Welcome to the April 29th, 2008 meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency. May we have the roll call, please?
Agency members Draymond.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Yusefian.
Here.
Chairman Najarian.
Here. And we have your report, please.
The agenda for the April 29, 2008 regular meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, April 24, 2008 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. The next item?
Next item is approval of minutes.
So moved.
Second.
If there are no objections or corrections to the minutes, then they will be approved as submitted. Next item, please.
Next item is oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Members of the redevelopment agency may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The executive director may refer the matter to the staff for an investigation and a report.
The first speaker I have is Herbert Milano.
Good afternoon, Agency Chair Najarian, members of the agency and staff. My name is Herbert Milano. About 4 years ago, when we were discussing the issues of the Americana, I ran into a document which was a strategic plan created in 1996. The surprise to me was that when I started looking for it, very few people knew the details or the depth of this particular strategic plan. And it was a long-term strategic plan, but I figured that since no one or very few people knew about it, that a strategic plan was not necessarily being followed through. I got to thinking, well, there were objectives and measures made 4 years ago. Where are we today with regard to those objectives, and who is measuring them? So I brought for you the internal audit report that was created by, let's see, this was an internal audit, but it was actually an external entity, Marston, I can't quite recall. But I want to present some of the numbers that were being presented back then as the rationale for the investment that the city made on the Americana. Okay, let me bring it forward. Okay, this was the investment. Let's see if I can bring this up a bit. There we go. I think that's visible enough. All right, this is the GRA investment, $62 million in land, public improvements, $77 million, and this was Caruso's investment. And in the following pages, where this is the projected revenue. And the projected revenue to the GRA is $17.6 million during the whole, the 30-year income forecasted at the net present value. And this is money going to the housing set aside, total city income, money is going to other agencies in the county for $31.2 million over 30 years. But there is a sales tax amount that is being presented here, $23.1 million at net present value, I don't know, about $700,000 a year in sales tax revenue coming to the city. But the interesting part is that this property tax increment is based on the projected valuations done back in 2004, and I found it quite a bit of interest to find that the valuation of many of the properties, especially the condos, was at $330,000. So I think that perhaps as the city begins to look at the true revenues that will be coming based on the projections of 2004, that we perhaps should be keeping an ongoing monitoring of the projections that were made in 2004 to see if they really come through based upon those projections. Because it is only then when you begin to evaluate the original objectives to see if they come through. But I don't often see, for example, the results of the mitigation on the environmental impact reports. I see a lot of information concerning the objectives, but I oftentimes don't see that. Let me see if I can find a page with regard to the, tax revenue. There we go. Okay. Again, 23.1 million, but, it doesn't give it to you on a yearly basis. This is the same as the previous report that I was showing you earlier. What I wanted to bring back, and I am fortunate I can't locate it just now, I had the page in mind, was some of the justifications with regard to the parkland that was given to Caruso and the $4 million that was estimated as quote-unquote revenue, which wasn't really revenue. It was just simply saying if we had that park, then it would cost us $4 million to maintain it. So it was what I would call a bit of...
It's
pardon?
over there.
Right there.
It was over there, 4.6 million. Go back. Right
There we go. Thank you very much. So this is not really revenue. This is, if we had that property and if we were to maintain it, it will cost us $4.6 million, but we have pretty much given the full rights and authority for this park to Caruso. So as such, we only have these two particular sources of true income that the city can expect. But I would suggest that perhaps we can take a look at a renewed evaluation of those sources of income to see if they really match with what the original objectives were.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Mel Reyes.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Mel Reyes with the Outback Steakhouse. This is Holly Cachapaya, the joint venture partner for Outback Steakhouse in this area. We just wanted to say thank you very much for welcoming us to the city of Glendale. We are very honored that to be part of the city. Outback Steakhouse, our first day was on Monday, and being part of the community is a big deal for us, and we just want to say thank you very much.
I just want to say that it's been really nice getting to meet a few of you. You've been in our restaurant, and again, I just want to reiterate what Mel has said. That we're honored to be part of Glendale, and thank you, all of you that made that, possible for us, and your support with such things also as our signage and with our parking for our Outbackers, and we look forward to a long, successful relationship with the city of Glendale.
Thank you. We read all about you in the paper, and you have joined our service clubs already and are ready to play a big role, and you got the endorsement of Harry Hall, the godfather of mid-brand. So it's great to have your restaurant here. Mr. Draymond, then Mr. Quintero.
Well, I just wanted to comment. First of all, welcome. We're happy to have you, but I hope you're taking notes, Mr. Milano, because this is the one kind of beef the council's always happy to hear about. So, just wanted to add my welcome. I was not able to get out to the event, but that's all right. I will bring my fork and my knife, and I'll be a regular. So, thank you so much.
Mr. Quintero.
And I've already jumped into your delicious filet with a fork and knife. You've done a great job of redoing the restaurant with the right signage. I think you're going to be very successful, and you're almost at Tony Roma's for ribs. That's the premier restaurant here in Glendale. You're almost there, so hopefully you'll achieve that standard soon. Thought I'd plug both of my friends' restaurants.
Mr. Lanzafame and Mr. Issa.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say, over the last few weeks, we've been talking about businesses that get involved in the community, and neither Mel nor Holly were probably willing to admit, but on their first day, they took out the proceeds from their opening day and donated that to Forduga Hills Hospital. And it does show an investment in the community, and it's just the type of business that we've been talking about the last few weeks. Thank you very much.
Mr. Isafian.
And I want to also welcome you to the City of Glendale. This will be a loss for City of Burbank because I always go there for the Outback restaurant, but so it'll be closer to my house. So you may see me there a lot more often than you like. But I like your food, I like your service, and thank you for coming to City of Glendale, and thank you for reducing my trip and save some gas. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next speaker is Scott Silver.
Hello,
Good job.
Mayor Draymond, council members, city manager, city attorney. Thanks for having me. My name is Scott Silver. I represent myself and my partners, the owners of the Glendale Marketplace, the landlord for Outback. We were very excited to have Outback on board, something we've worked on together with many of you for quite a while, and couldn't be happier to see that it succeeded. It could not, Outback could not have come to the city of Glendale, and we could not have had this be a successful transaction without all of your help. Just won't take much of your time. Just wanted to say thank you. A few specific thank yous is to Phil Lanzafam and his entire staff at the RDA. Thank you, Jillian Van Muyden at the city attorney's office, Jim Starbird, the city manager, other city staff. You've all been great. And a special thanks to Dave Ahern for helping us on the transaction as well. Outback has had a great experience so far in the city of Glendale, and as their landlord, we're going to be their partner in their success and continue to encourage their community involvement and encourage all of our tenants and the mall in general to stay involved in the community and to be an active player. So thanks again.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Greg Astorian. Was that you playing tennis on the news press today?
That was my son.
Oh, it was your son. Congratulations. He's quite a doubles player, I understand.
Thank you. I gave that up about a few years back, so. My name is Greg Astorian. I'm with RE/MAX, proponent of Downtown Specific Plan. I had to, after having watched or having had glimpses of the budget hearing this morning and so forth, and then having heard Mr. Milano's comments today, I just couldn't resist making my own. First and foremost, this is according to Urban Land Institute, gentlemen. Public services for an average price single-family house, including the ones that we have in City of Glendale, if there is such a thing as average price single-family home, in a community costs more than twice as much as the property taxes paid by the homeowner. Twice as much. Primarily the reasons are public schools and basically trash and other services such as police. Now, when you compare that to compact development, the public and operating costs for closing compact development is much more lower than the fringe, scattered, satellite development. This is why Downtown Specific Plan is important. This is why it's irrelevant what we had in 1996 as a projected plan. Projected plans are living, breathing entities. They change, specifically speaking about Americana. What we had is that this issue was put to vote, and the voters voted for it. Regardless of how much tab you keep, I can provide Mr. Milano with information on 2004 appraisals versus 2007, 2008, 2009. You don't need to have another administrative policy doing so. Mr. Chair, you made a comment this morning about revenue enhancement programs as well as cutting costs, and I applaud you for that. And in fact, introducing higher density projects, again, according to ULI, into a community will actually increase communities' revenue without significantly increasing its infrastructure and public services burden. With that, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Astorian. I have no other cards. I'm going to close oral communications. Let's move on to the next item, please.
On the business agenda at 6A is Director of Development Services regarding professional services agreement change order for California Code Check in connection with continued professional building inspection services for the Americana brand project. That 6A1 is motion approving change order in the amount not to exceed $35,000, resulting in a total contract amount not to exceed $175,000.
This is a revenue neutral motion. Mr. Yusefian.
Move 6A1. Second.
Is there any other discussion? We'll take roll call.
Agency members Draymond,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Yusefian,
Aye.
Chairman Najarian.
Yes. Let's move to the next item, please.
At 6B is public hearing, Director of Development Services regarding plaza remodel, sign program, and sign variances for the city center located at 101 North Brand Boulevard. B1 is a motion approving Stage 1 and 2 final design review subject to comments and conditions from the city's principal urban designer and agency. At B2 is a motion approving variances for 6 projected blade signs and a building identification sign based on findings and conditions made pursuant to Chapter 330.43 Glendale Municipal Code 2005.
This is a formal public hearing, so I will open the public hearing at this point and go to Mr. Lanzafine.
Mr. Chairman, members of the agency, this is a plaza remodel of a project that was developed in the late 1980s. And I would like to introduce Annette Vartani and Jackson. She'll introduce the project to you and the development team. They'll go through their design and sign variances. Annette.
Hello, Agency Chairman Najarian and members of the Redevelopment Agency. I'm Annette Vartani Jackson in the Development Services Department. Today I'm here to introduce the City Center 1 Rehabilitation Project. City Center is located at 101 North Brand Boulevard within the Downtown Specific Plan. It is a 400,000 square foot, 21-story building and is located on the northwest corner of Brand Boulevard and Broadway Avenue. And the building features offices, retail tenants, and restaurants, which includes BJ's, Islands, and Olive Garden. The building was built in the 1980s, and the new property owners, Legacy Partners, would like to enhance the building and outdoor space. The project entails rehabilitation of the plaza level, improvements to the second floor retail, and retail spaces along the colonnade on Brand Boulevard, and to create a more identifiable front entrance for this Class A office tower. The applicant is also proposing a comprehensive sign program which addresses existing signage and the introduction of new signage. The proposed sign program requires some variances that do not meet the standards in the code. The principal urban designer, Alan Loomis, has reviewed the project and supports the project as submitted, and he has offered recommendations to enhance the design of the plaza should the property owners want to continue and implement future design elements. Mr. Loomis is available to answer any questions agency members may have. Staff recommends that the agency adopt the motions approving Stage 1 and Stage 2 final design, the revised sign program, and standards variances for signage for the property located at 101 North Brand Boulevard. Steve Ward and Chris Hilton, who are representatives from Legacy Partners, are also present in the audience and are available to answer questions, but they will be giving a brief introduction as well.
Okay. Thank you. Shall we go to the gentleman? Mr. Word?
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members, members of staff. Annette, thank you very much. I'm Scott Word with Legacy Partners. I head up our acquisitions and development efforts here in Los Angeles. By way of background, we acquired the 101 North Brand property in July of last year, and at that time it was only 38% leased. We have since leased the property up to about 50%, with most significantly the addition of DreamWorks. You know, this is a major investment for us. It's a very large project, and the proposed renovation of the plaza area, as well as identifying the front door and creating a better view from the street, are very important elements of the design to us. So, you know, we have various members of our team here. Myself, Mike Navarro, who is our regional property vice president, Ed Nasrati from Foster City, our head of design, Matt Avalone is our project manager, and Chris Hilton is our design architect. At this time, I'd like to turn the mic over to Chris to let him walk you through our proposed modifications. Thank you.
you.
Thank you. I'm Chris Hilton, HKS Architects. I'm one of several design directors with the firm. 101 brand, as Scott said, is a significant investment for legacy partners. They look at 101 brand as an opportunity, but an opportunity with some serious issues that are preventing the building from performing to its capacity, either in office or retail. This is a quick overview of the site. We all know where 101 brand is between Broadway and Wilson. It occupies approximately 2/3 of this site. It's on the east side of Brand. There is a new project coming on the north side of the block. I'm sure you're familiar with that. The existing conditions for 101 brand are not conducive to a Class A corporate office identity. They're not conducive to a functioning, successful retail identity either. If we were to sum up what we see in a word from the street, the imagery from the street of the ground level plaza, the building entries, and the retail, is clutter. There is tremendous visual clutter, and it's a combination of a lot of things. It's softscape, trees, poorly designed signage that is more of a problem. It actually doesn't function well as signage, and it just contributes to the clutter. We can't see the front door. Even someone who's not involved in real estate would recognize that this building has a serious deficiency. If I can't find the front door, how are we going to rent this building out to Class A corporate tenants? Here's some other views of the existing conditions. The artwork also presents a bit of an issue in the fact that it's in direct line of sight to the front entrance of the building. The building has an architectural problem. Were we to remove all of the clutter, we would still have only a pair of doors hidden within a glass wall. There's no identification of the door, even were we to remove most of the clutter that's prevented us seeing the front door. Here's our plan. What it involves is, if the center of gravity is in the center of the plaza today with a series of 9 planters and palms in this area, the artwork in the pool, we are moving that to the north. One of the things that the retail fails to do is the escalator today lands in essentially a no man's land of nothing, and it arrives at the landing on the second level in a pyramid space, rather large, with nothing in it, no light, no objects, nothing of interest. So we have a non-functioning plaza in terms of a corporate entity, and we have a non-functioning plaza in terms of its approach to the second-level retail. This diagram represents our design. What we are doing is removing the palms that exist in the center of the plaza and relocating them to the north at the base of the escalator. We're creating a circle of palms with seating and lighting in this location to create an arrival point on your way to the second-level retail. We have, in the place of the 9 palms in the center, we're introducing a large green area into the plaza through turf and other planting forms. We're leaving 2 of the planters and just replacing the palms with low plantings here in the pool. The idea here was to introduce more people-friendly green space into the design. Right now, there's roughly 25% green space and water to hardscape in the existing design. This design raises that level to approaching 60% green space and water to hardscape. That would not, of course, include this area, which is city sidewalk. If we look at this in perspective, in an aerial perspective, we can see the major elements. Again, we're removing, relocating artwork, removing palms and relocating those to this location to try to animate our approach to the second-level retail. We're introducing a much more friendly green space here for pedestrians. We have redone the signage consistent with the architecture of the building. We're introducing a major new entry element to define the front door of the building. We're also introducing some blade signage here to help some of the colonnade retail that is not performing as well as it should. So this design, as you see it here, both in aerial and perspective, removes most of the visual impediments to seeing both the signage on the second level for the retail, the front entry of the building. We now have visual access to those elements. This is it's a quick view of the landscape elements. Again, we're just relocating existing palms, introducing some dwarf palms into the planters, along with annuals, and then annuals and succulents along the edges of the green turf. Artwork. If you look, as we're moving along the sidewalk or we're moving along the street, you can see that the existing artwork is in direct line of sight to the entry, and if we're going to invest in what we think is necessary here, we want to relocate this art both to solve an issue in terms of seeing past it to our entry and to get it into an area where it is more involved with the traffic that we're going to create going to the residential or the retail area, the Palm Court and the second level above the escalator landing. Here we see the art as we're proposing to relocate it. The tall element, which is the most difficult to deal with, we're relocating along with the circular palm court here at the base of the escalator. So we now have an experience that includes the palms, the seating, the lighting, and a piece of art. When we arrive up at the landing of the escalator, we're putting the two smaller pieces of art in this location where we can get more interaction between people and the artwork here at this level. And we're really animating this entire experience of arrival at the site, recognizing the retail through the signage, passing through the circular palm court, experiencing the art, riding the escalator, and experiencing the art again. This is where we will win or lose the day. This is the street level view from the sidewalk, from the street. Here you can see, and then we now have an unobstructed view to the building entry and the new building entry element that we're adding to the site. The new signage element that we're adding, which is the initial experience leading you to the circular palm court, the escalator, the pyramid landing at the top of the escalator, two pieces of art up there, an additional introduced lantern element here, a lighting element, which is in working as well with the signage at the base, and then moving on into the second level. You can see we've got some things occurring in there. When you arrive at the second level today, it's a little disappointing. Clearly there's not much color, it's dark, it's not very friendly. We've got a very successful restaurant, California Pizza Kitchen, but we've had trouble leasing the other spaces. So the proposal here is to go in and continue the experience through a very exhaustive remodel of the second level. You can see some of the ceiling elements we're looking at include lighting, and those would be visible from the street, from the sidewalk. And again, once we remove all the clutter in the way of those. The nighttime experience, we see clearly the project is 350,000 feet of office building, 60,000 feet of retail. In the daytime, it should have a successful office building environment, and we think we've achieved that. But in the late afternoon and evening, through lighting and signage and these more animated paths getting to the retail, we think we can turn it into a much more animated retail environment, evening environment, and more active space in the evening. Right now, it's pretty dead, and so that's what we're trying to achieve with these implied lighting. Here's some of the ideas that we're looking at in lighting, some of which we've committed to. Animating the fountain with more jets and more lighting in the jets, lighting at the edges of the fountain. So we're trying to take that fountain and turn it into a much more animated, living event in the plaza. Lighting for the palms at base and staff, and lighting of the shaft. That we're committed to as well. But we're looking at other elements as well to try to improve the nighttime experience. Going through individual elements of the plaza, this again is the now visible new entry element. This is a granite and aluminum and glass entry canopy element leading to the front doors again, which are merely buried in the glass wall. This is done in a style that's consistent with the original architecture, consistent with the quality and materials of the original architecture. Here you see the lamp element and some of the artwork up here in the second level of the escalator landing, and you can see some of the more animated areas in the second level of the retail. One of the things we're doing here as well is we're replacing all the glass on the second level, which is currently a dark gray tinted glass with a clear glass, so that we can see in there, so that when we're spending money in that space, we can see it, we can draw people to it. Here's a detail of that particular wall. Again, the materials are granite, aluminum. We've got a signage elements, which is part of the signage package here, which is a building identity signage. This merely repeats what exists elsewhere on the building. Again, the materials are granite, aluminum, and glass. Another element is here is the retail signage on the street here, which starts the retail experience. That is, again, built out of the same base materials as the building. It's consistent with the quality of the building and the design of the building in terms of materials and simplicity and the corporate nature. In the evening, this is an internally illuminated sign with illuminated graphic as well. So it's got both a daytime identity and an evening identity. The lantern, designed in the same quality, same materials at the landing of the escalator, shared by the two art pieces. Here's another issue that is underperforming, and that is the retail under the colonnade along the street. As you can see, it's dark under there. No one sees it, no one knows it's there. We're proposing to introduce blade signage mounted on the columns that would identify the 6 different possible tenants in that location. This is again designed in the same, consistently with the design concepts of the major signage we introduced in the plaza. This is individually illuminated blade signage, and if we don't have a tenant, we'll probably introduce a graphic that describes the project. Materials. These signage elements and architectural elements are all custom fabricated, but they're made from readily identifiable materials: granite of the building, aluminums, glass, various finishes of aluminum, plexiglass.
I'll have one of each, Bill.
Well, kind of working out that.
Yeah.
This is part of the signage survey. By ordinance, when we introduced anything new in the signage, we needed to go back and do an entire survey of all the signage on the building, both ground floor, second floor, exterior signage. Phil, thank you. I appreciate that. This is a graphic which illustrates BJ's, Islands, California Pizza Kitchen, and also identifies all the signage that would be removed as well as that which will stay. That's been in your package, and we can go into that in detail. We're also identifying signage at the ground level underneath the colonnade, and we're giving it a size. And this is part of the overall signage variance and some of the variances, individual variances that we're seeking. Here's second level signage, what is being removed, what is staying, and identifying the size of proposed new tenant signage. The exterior, we originally approached this as an interior signage element. We ran into a rock and 2 hard places on this one. The retailers were not receptive at all to doing that on the interior, so we're merely sticking with what they currently have, which is signage mounted to the exterior of the mullions. Again, more definition of the possible tenant spaces and possible signage locations. This is all part of the signage variance package. And with that ends our presentation. Unless you have any questions I can help you with.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't have any cards on this item, so I'm going to close the public hearing and give it to my colleagues. Mr. Yusefian.
Gentlemen, a couple of questions. On your first page on site plan, talks about add water jets to pool. Could you elaborate on that?
It's our intention, since we're asking to remove and relocate the artwork, to reanimate the pool with water jets located around the perimeter. We're working on a design as we speak, and then to animate the jets with light, as I showed you in the lighting diagram.
Okay, do you know what shape it's going to take? Is it going to shoot straight up? Is it going to go inside?
Arcing inward is the general intention at the moment, and it's circular, fixed around the perimeter, but there would be individual elements at various levels within the pool. The pool is multi-leveled and it has several falls. So we're in the design process right now of doing that, as I indicated to you in the lighting diagram. We're committed to that particular animation of the pool and the lighting that would further animate the water jet.
Okay, so that would be a condition of approval?
I think we can say that, yes.
The other thing was that you are removing more than just palm trees and relocating. There are several other species of trees that are in that current plaza.
That's true.
What happens to those trees? I mean, those are mature trees. I mean, I could see it on your on your front page.
Those trees are located in these planters right here. And
Well, you got a few that is more this way, where the palm trees are
there's
right
some
now.
trees here,
Yes.
some back in here as well.
Right.
At this point, we're simply removing those because they're more of an impediment than they are an advantage to the plaza. What we're not removing the planters. We are replacing the plantings in the planters with a lower element, annuals and dwarf palms.
Okay, you also have 9 palm trees currently.
That's correct.
And you're going to use only 6 of them, so there's 3 that is left over. Is there a possibility of using the other 3 somewhere else in the plaza, possibly by the escalator as you're going up?
That's possible. One of the areas that's less well defined in our scheme is this edge, which is shared with the future project.
Right.
We know from their design goals that there's a restaurant in that location.
Right, but it's on the edge closer to the street, not an edge that is further by the escalator.
That's correct.
Actually, that is, in that area is less of a interface. It goes up 2 floors or 3 floors before they have a landscaping for their pool and so on and so forth. So, I hate to see, mature trees, and especially palm trees, cost a lot of money, especially when they're this size, to be just thrown away. You are changing lighting and introducing a new light fixture into the to the escalator, but then you showed what the arcade looks like. And if you look at the lighting in the arcade, it's completely different and inconsistent with what you're putting into in that tower.
We go to the lighting in the arcade, there really isn't much. That's part of the problem.
And that's the problem.
Very dark. Let's see if I get back here, in this area.
Look at those light designs. They basically have an amber color shade, which that softens the light a lot. It is a different design than what you are doing out there. I would say that it's not as contemporary as what you're putting in the other one. What if you just change some of those lights so this way they're complementary to what you're putting in there?
That's definitely something we can consider.
Okay, and that would solve 2 problems. It will be more consistent with what you're doing, modernizing it. Also, it will brighten up and bring some more light in there, so it'll make it more inviting for people to go in. The other issue for me is that you have created a nice flat grass knoll, grassy area in the center. While you have a little sitting area on the... See, there's a little sitting area, and that is a function of the elevation of the dirt. You have to kind of put that in there to retain the soil. On the opposite side, there is an opportunity to have something of similar, even though you don't have a grade elevation issue, but to create that type of a wall on the opposite side. So this way people can sit there and wait while they're waiting to be called for, their vibrator goes off and says, okay, it's your turn to come in and eat at the restaurant. And so that would be very helpful, even though there is no reason for you to put that just for friendly purposes. Because I generally don't think people are going to sit there and be looking at the traffic as it goes by. They'd rather sit on the other side and watch their friends get a seat before they do.
Or their vibrator.
So that would be one thing. The other one big objection I have to this project is removal of all the art from the fountain. Now, you don't have a lot of an attachment to it. You don't live in Glendale. This one and a couple of horses that are on brand are the only 2 major art features that we have on a building in the whole city. The fountain and all the statuary is very iconic to our city. It was one of the few things that was put in when they built this project. this project was supposed to have 2 phases. That's part of the reason the escalator doesn't make sense to you, because part 2 never got built. That's why everything is kind of, centered more to the center, because they assumed there would be another one. No, things have changed. And I think you're doing a good job trying to reorient that. But my issue is that we're taking all the art and we're putting it behind a glass, or we're putting it behind the trees where nobody sees unless you're walking there.
Unless you're on that path.
And how difficult it would be to remove just part of that art and leave some of them in the fountain itself.
Well, we considered lots of options. We knew when we started this project that the art was objectionable without having any attachment to the art, because it blocks the view to the front door. But we knew there would be issues, so we looked at lots of possibilities. We talked about relocating all the art at this level, not just the major vertical piece, but all the 2 other pieces here, in concert with the coming phase of building. The vertical piece is clearly the most objectionable.
And you will get no argument from me on that. It's not exactly something that I will die on. But the other 2 pieces, especially the round piece, is very pleasant. It's small. It's on a corner. It's lower down. And, of course, the face is the most iconic.
Sure.
It really sticks out.
And it's the smallest piece.
And it's the smallest piece. So if you left those 2 pieces in there with this configuration, that would kill you, or is something you could live with?
Nobody ever dies over these things.
All right.
But there is a strong feeling on the part of the ownership about removing anything in front of this rather large investment in the new entry element. Focus is clearly on trying to make this a more corporate location where we can get high-end corporate users from around the valley into this building. I don't think that's off the table in terms of a discussion. I think we can certainly discuss that and pursue that, again, as long as we all agree that certainly the most offensive piece.
Right. And I don't think you're going to get a lot of objection from me and a lot of people, but many people in this city have seen that particular fountain for many years. It's iconic. It's been on the front page of the yellow pages, telephone pages. It's in multitudes of videos. It is very much liked. A lot of people like to hang around. A lot of people like to meet there. They just say which one it is, so everybody knows that. And to me, while I understand your property owner is interested in a corporate, but I also have to look at the quality of life issue in the city and trying to maintain a high quality that we're accustomed to. And I think this kind of changes the quality. I don't want to go as far as saying that it lowers it, but it definitely changes it. And many residents,
the way you experience that art.
And many residents in this city don't do well with change.
Okay.
Duly noted.
Right. So those are some of my comments on these.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Draymond, Quintero, then Weaver.
Well, as my colleague, Mr. Yusefian, is often quoted as saying, with all due respect, I have a different take on this. First of all, I like the changes for a whole host of reasons. Let me come to the art last. Clearly, my problem with this complex from the beginning is that there has been no focus to it. And your job has been exceedingly complicated as a result of taking a previous design and trying to make it into something that has a focus. I mean, just as basic as you say, where's the front door? Pretty basic issue, right? Where is the front door? Come out wherever you are. And I think you've done a great job in defining that. Removing all of and clutter is a fabulous word. That is the word. The signage, all of that on the metal posts and the grid pieces and all of that, which was just awful, is just awful. You stand out there, and I don't care whether it's an architectural piece or an art piece, whatever, as a pedestrian, a viewer, someone who's going to go there, you don't have any clue as to where you're supposed to look. It's just a bunch of visual noise right now. So what you've done with it, moving the trees the way you have, focuses the view of the property. Suddenly, and it's not just the view of where the restaurants like Olive Garden and California Pizza Kitchen are. Suddenly, the property to the left, where the colonnade is and all of that, suddenly you go, oh my gosh, there's a building here that actually has some architecture to it. It's a nice modern building.
It is. It's very nice.
And the lines of it are fantastic, but you don't even know it's there until you make these changes. You've given us a green space. I like the new signage on the pylon there. And I do like the green space you've given us. I like the water feature given us, and I'm not particularly that concerned as to whether the jets go straight up or at an angle. But I do like the new water feature. I like the fact that it's lighted, or going to light it. I have a question about the outside signage for the upstairs. Is that signage going to be the neon that we... I'm hoping the answer is no.
Currently,
because I think
it's internally illuminated channels. It is not neon.
Thank you. Okay. And then let me lastly come, so with all of that, and I like the blade signs because the arcade is, and I go to a couple of the businesses there, the coffee place there and so on. It is rather dark, and it is rather, it's not very inviting, you're right. The blade signs I think will help. And you say they're illuminated, correct?
Correct. Yeah. You can see that they're individually illuminated.
Let me come to the artwork last. Some of the conversation we're having bothers me a little bit. It's not that we're moving the art, that doesn't bother me. It's the idea that as a council we're presuming what the art is meant to be and saying let's take one of these and one of those and leave part of this and part of that. The artwork is not three pieces of, or four pieces, independent pieces of artwork. It's not a giant lifesaver, a piece of a face and a birthday cake sitting in a puddle. They're as separate items. It is supposed to be one item. That artist selected those three items, organized them and arranged them together in that pond or fountain. That was his or her idea of what that was supposed to represent. Once we've decided we're going to move any or all of that, to me, it all has to go. It's like looking at the Mona Lisa and saying, you know what, I like the eyebrows, but I don't think of her as much as a blonde, so let's take the eyebrows out. Maybe she'd look, it's not like a flip-flop book where you just say, okay, well, let's put her in a pinafore dress instead of whatever. One man's giant lifesaver face and a birthday cake is another man's giant ball of string at a contemporary museum of art. So I like what you're doing with it. In my mind, if it's not going to be there, then all of it has to go. It's not our job to re-edit someone else's art, and that's not our expertise and background. It's just a philosophical difference that some of us may have. I do like the fact that you're introducing two of the two smaller elements at the top of the escalator, because it is just an empty, nothing space. You will justify the space and justify the art by placing it there, and you'll lend focus to it. In addition to that, the thing I keep referring to as the birthday cake, it's a larger piece. So you will also lend focus to the downstairs. By the way, are you aware who did do this?
I saw it in Annette's report.
It is an artist. It is in the report. It's called Intersections.
Right, but I mean who the artist is.
I'll tell you.
Come on, Annette, you wrote it. Help me out here.
Is there anyone in the room, by the way?
Nava.
Has anybody spoken to the individual?
No, in fact,
his
today,
particular take on
your report was the first time I knew who the artist was.
Okay. I'm just curious whether or not we ever got his take on this piece and what we're proposing to do with it. I'm very pleased with the changes. I truly am. I do know what my colleague, Mr. Yusefian, is saying. It is a piece of our landscape in this city. It is something we're familiar with, and he is absolutely right. People don't like human nature. We don't like change. However, if that had not existed, if it were placed in the manner you're planning to place it, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if another architect came by and said, you know what, this belongs down in the pond, down there in the front, we'd all be saying the same thing. Hey, you know, you're messing around with something this city is used to seeing. I do like what you're doing, and I'm ready to go ahead. And I guess that's the end of my comments.
Mr. Quintero.
I'm also very happy with the design. I think it really clears up the plaza, and I do like the artwork, the way you've grouped it, one at the bottom of the escalator and then the two at the top. The blade signs, I think, are absolutely necessary for the businesses under the colonnade, so I think that's a very good idea. And I think you've done a great job. I'm looking forward to seeing the changes. It is going to absolutely focus on, it's kind of interesting how it works. After all these years, I still don't think of it as an office building, because kind of can't remember where you have some excellent tenants that have been there for years, Olive Garden and Islands, California Pizza Kitchen, so I think this refurbishing is going to help you attract the corporate tenants you're looking for, and also I think it's going to provide a great commercial space. So
Thank you.
Very satisfied with your approach.
Mr. Weaver.
Well, everything boils down to economics, how much money you have to invest. If I had unlimited money, I'd design it totally different. Like, for one thing, I can look down at what Caruso has done along the street, put in planters, grass, and everything before you get to the sidewalk. It breaks up the mass. You could do it here, but it's more money. I'd take out the escalator. I'd put an elevator because it's sticking right out in the middle of the space. Doesn't look good. I'm concerned about the connectivity to the new hotel to be coming in. I don't know how that's going to tie together. I always thought that this was an area that would be good as a centerpiece, like when we do cruise night, putting the stage in that area, whatever. I know what the hot afternoon sun is like there, boiling down on this area, and I could care less about the artwork. Put it where you want. I lived here all my life, and I seldom ever walk by and look at it. I like the flowing water. I'd move more flowing water. But that's if I had unlimited budget and I could do anything I want to do. Having said that, I'm fine with what you're planning to do. You have retailers in there that need signage. And we went through that with BJ's. We went through with it In and Out. We went through it with Islands. It makes all the sense. If you want your businesses filled up, you got to market it. And that's the least you can do is doing that. So I'll support it. I'm just saying I would have done different if I had all the money in the world like Caruso does, you know. But
Wouldn't we all?
wouldn't we all? So, no, this will open up signage. It is difficult when you know where to go in or out of that building right now. So that's good. And I guess I got to ask one of the attorneys one question. Since my daughter works for DreamWorks, am I conflicted out or can I vote on this? I just want to make sure. I don't want anybody to say I got a conflict here.
Agency member Weaver, you did ask that question before. And
I'm asking it again.
And
before
the
I vote on
conclusion
this.
is the same as previously.
No conflict.
And that is no conflict. That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Weaver, I am withdrawing my nomination of you as art curator for the city of Glendale.
You know,
I'm going to go to Mr. Yusefian and then Mr.
No, just to finish up on that, I got an A in every art class I ever took through college, and I am an artist. So.
Well, you should appreciate the art.
Show you my drawings sometime.
It was up to him, there would be no art in this planet. Let me add one thing, that your signage, I don't have an issue with the blade signs. I think that's a great idea. It actually is very nice and tastefully done. My issue is with also the big ground sign that you have there. I think you're also applying for a variance for that one.
Correct.
Okay, I just know, my colleagues, they realize that that is 14 feet tall.
There's no variance for that?
No variance for that one?
No variance for the ground sign.
That one is 14 feet tall and 9 feet wide, which is bigger than the element that is supposedly very objectionable in the fountain. So my question is, we had another project that came to us proposing something very similar. These type of signages are reminiscent of the 1980s. Nothing fancy, nothing new, nothing innovative. So my question to you is, since you have this beautiful light fixture hanging in there, why couldn't you be a little bit more innovative and design a signage that was very attractive and acted as something that got you? I mean, you're using glass, you're using granite, you're using all the nice finishes in metal. Why can it be more tridimensional instead of just two-dimensional?
Well, I think you make a good point, and I think you can recognize that the genesis of this particular element is consistent with the architecture of the tower. If it's being bent one way, it's not towards the more looseness of the retail, but the more rigidity of corporate America. That's what's leading that design. Now, we heard your comments through Mike, and we did some studies you might want to look at. They generally stay with this proposal, but they add a little more zip, a curve, a few things. One is very subtle on the left, the one on the right is a little more versions. And I don't think, again, that's not an issue that anybody's going to die over, but it still has more of a corporate feel to it.
Okay, let me go to, while you look at that, Mr. Quintero.
Yeah, I wanted to suggest if you have trees, you could box them and donate them to the city of Glendale or some other.
I forgot.
Or some other
Stole my line.
nonprofit.
Yeah,
I think they're taking notes. So.
yeah, give them to us.
Can you box any of my colleagues and donate to another city?
Where there's a will, there's a way.
All right. Oh, that got an applause. All right.
Mr. Starber.
Well, maybe just on the sign, a question on how it's constructed materials. The rendering leads you to believe that it's not a typical box sign where a plastic face is in a metal box.
No.
It looks like the entire, I'll call it the entire box, essentially is illuminated from within, which is a very different look than a standard box sign like we saw was represented at the marketplace. Here, it gives it a very different look when the entire box seems to be translucent and is illuminated from within.
Part of our desire to have a daytime corporate image and then have it transition over the
With
late
the lights.
afternoon and the evening into something more retail,
With the lights at night.
a little more festive.
Actually, between the two signs, I would prefer this design over the other one. I think it's actually cleaner, crisper.
Mr. Draymond, and then we're going to move on to a vote.
I got to ask you, there was some discussion, probably my colleagues remember earlier on, related to the use of the area, say in the evening or whatever, by some of your tenants or corporate tenants as a gathering place. They were going to hold some kind of a quasi-public event or whatever. Are you still able to do that with this? To use the capability of covering the fountain or whatever.
Mike Navarro. We've discussed that in great length, and we feel it's part of our contribution back to the city in some way to have intermittent outdoor activities. I know that there is formerly a Christmas tree celebration or lighting event that no longer occurs on the property. We're very delighted to host that, if you will, in like events, so we're very open to.
Well, I'm also interested in it from the standpoint of marketing the rest of that 50%, as a way of helping to market the property itself, that some of your tenants would have the opportunity to hold functions there as well.
We're clearly open to those events. I think we think enough out of the box to organize such an event for any particular group, whether it's a city organization or a private event that is being catered to by one of the restaurants, perhaps. So we are thinking outside of the box. We haven't gotten into the details of it, but do see that as an eventual occurrence.
Okay, thank you.
And we're ready to wrap it up.
Yeah,
Final comments.
Christmas trees, forget it. Caruso's going to have the tallest Christmas tree west of the Mississippi down here. It's going to beat the Grove out, so we want a smaller contribution. Yeah, and I talked to Caruso many years ago in the concept stage about covering his fountain, which he still can do. Could put a Disney concert orchestra on top of his fountain. Yours would be much easier to do if you design it, the footings and stuff around it so you can assemble it.
Correct. We actually did think about that exact point, and then also, fortunately for us, we have the green space, which in the event it becomes too costly to put a covering over the water feature, we can use the grassy area as sort of a staging area, if you will, for outdoor bands or events or jazz festivals.
You get the advantage of height if you put over the...
No, I understand. No, absolutely. Sometimes it's either an issue of construction issues or semantics or cost or whatnot, but we feel we have the latitude to do one or both.
Okay. With that, Mr. Najarian,
I would like to make a few comments before you make a motion. First off, I'm generally in favor of the goals to clear the line of sight, as well as liven up the colonnade area. One point that Mr. Yusefian whispered to me that I'll give him credit for is to perhaps include some, in those blade signs, include some parking directions. Sometimes there's a confusion as to where the parking exists for that particular building. As far as the public use goes, I know that previously the water feature has been used to launch the Kiwanis Duck Splash event.
I didn't know about that one.
Which is a fun event, and I hope you can continue that effort. And looking at all this artwork, and I'm the farthest from... Can you get back to those signs of artworks? I don't have any problem moving it, but as I look at it, and I'm not running for art curator for the city, but when you mention the title, intersections, and what I see is a representation of the Aztec Empire,
right?
The wheel, and a representation of the Roman Empire, the Ionic columns, and perhaps the face representing
Hellenian.
The Hellenic, the face of Helen of Troy that lost 1,000 ships, stretching it maybe a little bit, but I understand that keeping them in those locations would block the view, but I think they're very, as we think about art, it's a very interesting series of components, and Mr. Draymond's point that they are to be taken as a whole certainly is well taken. So with that, Mr. Weaver, did you have a motion?
I'd like to move 6B, 1 and 2.
Second.
If there's no further discussion, roll call, please.
Agency members Draymond?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Yusefian?
No.
Chairman Najarian?
Yes. Let's move on to 6C, please.
How about...
We did 6B, 1 and 2, correct?
Yes.
6C.
At 6C is another public hearing, Director of Development Services regarding Stage 1 design review for Glendale Triangle mixed-use project located at 3900 San Fernando Road. At C1 is a motion approving Stage 1 design review, subject to comments and conditions from the city's principal urban designer and the agency.
Thank you. This is a formal public hearing, and I will open up the hearing at 6C. Mr. Lanzafame.
Mr. Chairman, members of the agency, this is a Stage 1 design review of a property in the San Fernando Road corridor. Just a reminder, we have taken quite a few projects, Stage 1 and 2 together. Stage 1 is really site planning, massing, and scale. You will see introduced a little bit of the architectural design, but really what we're looking for is massing, scale, site planning, and then from that, your comments, they will start to finalize their design and use that as their project description for any environmental review.
So don't drill down too deep, fellas.
So there will be some refinement in the architecture, if I could translate your comment that way. There will be. We'll continue to work, the developer will continue to work with the urban designer, Alan Loomis, to bring you a final sometime later this year. You ready? With that, I'll introduce Alan Castillo, Project Manager with Development Services. He will introduce this project and the development team, then they'll walk you through their design.
Good afternoon. My name is Alan Castillo, Project Manager with the Redevelopment Agency, and I'm here to introduce today the Glendale Triangle Project. The Glendale Triangle Project is located within the San Fernando Road Corridor Redevelopment Project area and is situated on a triangular-shaped site of approximately 2.18 acres. The project is bounded by Los Feliz to the north, Central Avenue to the east, and San Fernando to the west. Currently, the site is occupied by a Burger King, a car wash and a detail building, and an automotive tire service center. The developer, Equity Residential, is proposing to develop a transit-oriented, high-density, multifamily, mixed-use project consisting of 218 residential units, 54,000 square feet of commercial space, recreation and open space, and a subterranean parking garage. Excuse me. Agency staff is requesting a Stage 1 design review for the Glendale Triangle project with direction to the applicant to further refine the project design consistent with the comments from the city's principal urban designer, such as proportions, details, materials, landmark features, and sidewalk open space. Dan Golovato, First Vice President of the Development of Equity Residential, is here to give a brief introduction of their development and project. Eric Olson from Thomas Cox Architects will also provide any answers with regards to the design of the project. Charles Elliott, landscape architect from LRM, is here if you have any questions with regards to landscaping. And now here is Dan Golovato.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Chairman and members of the agency, as was indicated, my name is Dan Golovato. I'm Vice President of Equity Residential. We have an organized presentation for you today, but I'd like to make a few brief remarks that I think might be helpful. First, let me tell you a little bit about who Equity Residential is. We're a Fortune 500 company traded on the New York Stock Exchange. We own and manage 17,500 apartment units in Southern California. 7,500 of those are owned and managed in LA County. We're long-term holders of the properties that we develop. We are going to develop, as mentioned, 218 residential units and 54,000 square feet of retail, which is within the zoning. All of these residential units will be market rate rentals. We spent considerable time already working and I think coordinating very well with the staff. We hope and trust that the design that we've come up with thus far is something both the city and certainly we are very proud of. We hope that this is a catalyst for this area of Glendale. We're excited about being near the hospital, being near the Vons, being near the Costco, being near the CVS, that provide amenities and services to our future residents. We're also very excited about the fact that we're walking distance to the transportation center. Lastly, in terms of our excitement, we're happy to be here at the time that Americana on Brand is opening. We think that's going to be great, and we want to be a part of Glendale in general, but also because Americana on Brand is coming. Lastly, I hope that this is only the first thing we do in Glendale. I hope that this is the first project that's successful, everybody is very happy with it, and there are things that we can do in the future. Let me introduce our team here. That's Thomas Cox Architects, Eric Olson and Simon Ha. LRM Landscape Architects, Charles Elliott. Kahn Consulting, Rodney Kahn. Our traffic consultants are Lynn Scott Law and Greenspan, and we will be doing an ERR for this project, and that will be done by Impact Sciences. After our architect gives a brief presentation, we're happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And let's move on to Eric Olson.
Good afternoon. I'm Eric Olson with TCA, or Tom Cox Architects. Hello to agency members, Councilman Najarian. Thank you for seeing our project today. We're excited about it and looking forward to showing it to you. I've been warned to be brief, so I will be brief, and I'll be glad to answer questions as they come up, either during the presentation or after. The left one. The big button. Okay, thank you. So here's our site here, the triangle site in the middle of all these great amenities, next to the train station. I don't have a pointer, do I? Does anybody have a...
Use the mouse as a pointer. It's around the arrow.
Whoops. How do I go back? Yes, please. Okay. So we are between San Fernando, Los Feliz, and Central. A quarter mile or a 5-mile walk to the train station here. And at a really interesting intersection of, or crossroads for an architect to work on a mixed-use project. A little more detail here on this aerial photo shows some of the zoning information in the San Fernando mixed-use area, in the industrial mixed-use area with, as Dan mentioned, the Vons and the CBS and, of course, the hospital. And what that means for us in starting to look at what this project wants to do, both architecturally and as a new element in the community, is how does this serve as both a mixed-use building but also as a gateway into Glendale and a gateway into this new area, looking forward to all this revitalization. And what we've come up with is a two-tiered approach. One is the 3 dotted circles you see there. We are planning as these landmark corners, these iconic elements that will serve as wayfinding devices, let you know that you're coming in from Atwater Village, you're coming south, entering Glendale, and you're seeing these corners and you're saying, wow, here I am coming into Glendale. That being said, here's our architectural story, if you will. At the junction or the intersection of San Fernando and Central, we're planning on a dynamic corner element that we've affectionately called the apex. Every architect's dream, I think, is to have a triangle building that comes to a sharp point, and we've taken that as far as we can go and still work within the setbacks. And we've extended that, and I've got some great views of that in the next couple slides, so I won't talk too much about that, but want this to be a dynamic wayfinding and iconic corner. Similarly, over on San Fernando at Los Feliz, we have what we call the gateway, a hovering or floating box sitting on top of a glowing retail storefront, street front, that will tell you you're coming into Glendale from the west. The entry is also what we're calling the entry into the building if you're a pedestrian, both a guest or a resident. And then we've got another important corner intersection that I sometimes call the anchor. It takes a positive corner and comes right down to the sidewalk. It does not have the negative space of a plaza in front of it, but sits right at the sidewalk in a confident urban gesture. And then down on the sidewalk level, we have a street cafe where the sidewalk has been widened, an area called the crossing directly across from the hospital where the sidewalk has been widened. This is the second or backdoor entry into the project. And also the bus stop up at the corner of Los Feliz and San Fernando where the sidewalk has been widened to accommodate waiting for the bus. Here's that apex corner in the first part of our schematic design. Proposing here that there could be a significant arch element that comes out, literally reaches across the plaza at grade. Proposing that it has a thin light element running up the middle so that at nighttime it continues to act as a wayfinding device, and possibly running these decks, the private residential decks, out of on top of the plaza area and really emphasizing that this is an important corner. This possibly could be an art component to the project. We really like the idea that the art component can also be a part of the architecture, come and touch ground and be a part of the urban design. I think that there's a lot of strength and potential in that idea. This is that floating box idea at the corner of Los Feliz and San Fernando, sitting on top of a dynamic and important storefront facade that's right at the sidewalk with an extended sidewalk near the bus stop. We'll talk more about this architecture in the next couple of slides. And then the anchor, or the standard corner that comes right down to ground, holds its corner at the intersection of Central and Los. The fourth rendering shows the front door to the building if you're a resident, also the front door if you are coming to use the commercial space. This is the entry for commercial parking, as well as the way you would walk out from the commercial parking space onto a sidewalk cafe. Over here is the front door to the apartment buildings with the entry lobby and the leasing, and so really playing up the fact that this is a wayfinding opportunity and front door to the building. The nuts and bolts of the building are shown best here in the first level plan. Obviously, with 54,000 square feet of retail, that's the predominant portion of this first floor plan. We've worked hard and had several meetings with Tom Mitchell and the traffic department to design where our locations for vehicular entry occur. One here off of San Fernando, as I mentioned, for the commercial, directly opposite the curb cut on the other side of the street, and then a totally separate vehicular entry to the building for the residents off of Central, which immediately dives down to the P2 level, or the level below the commercial parking. If I was to come to the building and park and use the commercial space, I pull in here off of San Fernando, and then if I'm lucky, park on this level, or if not so lucky, use this ramp to go down. The entire P1 level below is dedicated and exclusively for commercial parking. As I mentioned, there's two resident lobbies, the main resident lobby here off of San Fernando and the second resident lobby off of Central, and the obligatory stairs and whatnot for access to the upper levels and the garage level. And then that apex and that plaza element that we are becoming attached to here on the corner, showing the opportunities there. Going up one level, you come to the courtyard level or the podium level. You see here the resort-style courtyards that are being designed. This building is one building to the building department, but in our office we call it two buildings, and we hope that everybody else does too. It's going to feel like two buildings. This triangular building on the left and this H-shaped building on the right are going to come down to the sidewalk and read as two separate buildings. And the way that we do that is to set back this courtyard level here and here 20 or so feet from the sidewalk, so that you have these lines that come down from the corners of the buildings. Breaks up the scale a bit with the hospital across the street, the Vons, the bigger mixed-use buildings coming in. This just feels like the right scale for the neighborhood, but particularly when it's broken into these two component parts. The leasing leads you up to the clubhouse level. The clubhouse is here directly opposite the pool. There's a fitness room that enjoys expansive glass looking out onto San Fernando. There's some small water features in the other courtyards. And then, of course, the main pool courtyard directly opposite the clubhouse and fitness. Like I said, it has a resort-style feel at 80 or so feet wide and 120 or so feet in width. I believe this is where I segue into discussion about landscape.
You're going to get into landscaping? Okay,
Yes.
let me take a question on
Quick question.
architecture.
I want to make sure I understand right. On the podium level, all those open areas are connective. You can walk from one through the other.
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct.
So you can go over to the barbecue area, you can go to the fire, whatever, you're not constrained.
Absolutely, yes.
Good afternoon. I'm Charles Elliott, Design Principal with LRM Landscape Architecture. And We also view this as two buildings, and in fact, where these buildings break, that's the most interesting part of the project for us, because that's where we get to create outdoor open space for the residents of this project. You can see the outdoor courtyards are divided into 5 distinct zones, which provide basically 5 different open space opportunities for this garden terrace. The first and the largest, which Eric was just talking about, is the pool and spa area, which has direct relationship to the clubhouse. So this area is lined with palm trees, which actually activate this part of the plaza to the street and also allow for a lot of sun to spill into this area for sunning and good sun exposure for the pool. Along this edge, we've also got some cabanas and some mini cabanas here to provide a little bit of shade for those who may not want to be in the sun. Our landscape strategy for this court is to allow the palms to let sunlight come in where we want it, and then we've introduced canopy trees to provide a little bit more dappled shade and quiet shady areas in the more passive zone of this area here. The second larger courtyard is in this zone here, which is activated by an outdoor fireplace and a small water feature. Again, we have good connection from the podium plaza to the street, and a nice, wonderful garden space for people to congregate around with the sound of water. The outdoor fireplace area is defined by this ring of accent trees, which provide visual interest in certain seasonal parts of the year, and there's adequate seating for medium to large groups of people. Again, as we circulate further down into the site, we have small opportunities for quiet, passive areas and quiet contemplation. The next largest podium court is right here. Again, good connection to the street level here by this generous opening, and we've activated this end with a small fire pit. Again, a more passive space, so we have a little bit more in the way of canopy trees with dappled light and shade. And then moving into the enclosed courtyard here, this is a smaller, more passive zone. Since it is an enclosed courtyard, sound will bounce around a little bit more in here. So we've introduced, it's actually right underneath the writing there, but there's a small water element to provide the sound of water to bounce around that corridor. And then again, maybe a little fire pit and banquette here to provide some interest and activation of that court. The landscape has been selected both for form and character, but as well as part of the sustainable strategy for the building. It's going to be selected for drought tolerance and shade tolerance where appropriate. Another interesting thing I want to mention about the podium and the roof drainage, we're taking all of the stormwater that will fall on this site and piping it to the perimeter on the private side of the property line here. We're collecting it into little planters and filtering the stormwater through plants and soil medium to filter it before it leaves the site through the curb. And that'll also help activate the streetscape by bringing architectural detail and plant material against the building. I'll turn it back to Eric to talk about the building section.
Moving off the courtyard level, I'd like to take a look at the elevations. This is the San Fernando elevation, and those ground level planters that Charles spoke of are here at the bottom of these columns. And I agree, this is a really exciting feature of the overall sustainability of the building. Another component of that sustainable design is the solar orientation or location of the windows. It's not always easy to do in a residential project like this, but this is really exciting, and the way that the location of the fenestration has been partly influencing the look of the building. One example of that is here on the right side, the tall... Sorry, how do I get the pointer back? Do I push down? Okay. This element here has windows flanking either side, and it's really small and hard to see the detail, but this also has shading device on the left as well as a trellis above to shelter or shade the windows from the southwest sun. On the north side, not so much of a problem, and you'll see when we get to the other side that there's a lot more glass on Los Feliz, but it's exciting that that is starting to give form to the building, and what that has told us is that we can take this idea of verticality and let that permeate through the entire elevation of this triangular building, and then on the other side do something different to reinforce the fact that these are two. Again, you're seeing that setback of the plaza on front of the commercial space to differentiate the two buildings, the front door to the building here, and starting to look at some of the materials that this building can be made out of. Going around the corner, I started to mention on Los Feliz, this building takes on a horizontal emphasis. We're taking advantage of views to the mountains here and the nice gentle northern light, and increasing the amount of glass on this side. We're developing a nice rhythm. It's a nice simple facade that also emphasizes the horizontality of the storefront glass at street level, terminating in our floating box iconic corner.
Mr. Olson, I'm going to be losing a agency member at 4:30, and I do want to have his input.
Okay.
So if you could
got one more slide after
get
this,
to
I
the
believe.
major points.
The last elevation on Central shows the triangular building with the vertical emphasis and the sun shading devices, and the horizontal building to the right off of Los Feliz. See the second entrance for residents here at the below the courtyard, as well as the vehicular entry for residents. I believe that's all we have.
Okay. Did Simon Ha need to address us?
No.
No. Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm going to thank you for the presentation. I'm going to close the public hearing. And this is a stage 1 design review. Low level of scrutiny, addressing the issues of massing, placement, etc. Would you like to speak first, John, before you?
I will. I do have to leave at 4:30, but I am very happy with the architectural design. It is not just a project sitting on an interestingly shaped piece of land. It's a very innovative design, which is terrific. It will be a gateway project for City of Glendale. It's some of us were just chatting that it's a shame that the timing of the current market, because these would be, I think, tremendous condos. Actually, I think people would love to purchase something like this. I'm very happy with the sustainability elements that are introduced, because I think that is great, but and it's innovative, and it is as innovative as the design. This is the kind of design element that people who work in the preservation field, historic preservation field, look at and say, you know what, this is a piece of historic preservation, because part of that is to design the architecturally significant landmarks for our city's future. That is a piece of preservation as well, historic preservation. I believe this has every earmark of being just that type of design. And I'm interested to watch the project as it unfolds. For now, I don't have a tremendous number of questions. Matter of fact, I have no questions at the moment. I want to thank, though, the parties involved for such absolutely clear, straightforward presentation leading up to this, materials provided, and so on. There are just no questions, nothing left unaddressed, in other words, in this presentation, whether it's the parking, the design elements, the landscaping elements. It doesn't engender many, many, many more questions. In fact, it answers a lot of questions, and I'm very thankful to you for that. I look forward to watching the project as it comes along. Thank you.
Mr. Quintero.
I've given this project a high level of scrutiny and would go for a stage 2 approval at this point. The property owners have labored for many years to try to bring a project to that site, to that somewhat difficult site. And I'm very happy for them because I think they've teamed up with the right company. You guys have just done a tremendous job. The architect, I think, has just done a great job. And let me say that it's going to be a huge boost to this area. And I don't just mean the immediate area, but just this whole section of Glendale. It's our first mixed-use project that is near our transportation center. That's what we've been trying to achieve for many years. There are numerous projects that have sort of come and gone, but in fact they haven't been built, and I'm very confident that this project will be built. It's near some huge employment centers, Glendale Memorial Hospital, the auto dealerships, etc. So this is what we're trying to do when we talk about mixed use. This is it. And I just think the way the project's laid out, I mean, no matter what corner, as you drive up to this building, I think you're going to be impressed by what you see. The residents, I think, are going to live in just a really wonderful place. And I'm just looking forward to building it as soon as possible. So I want to thank you and compliment, like I say, the property owners that have been Glendale for many, many years, and to the new people coming in. This is just a great project. It's going to, as a result of this, hopefully some other property owners will be inspired, and we're going to achieve the goals we've set out to achieve many, many years ago. So thank you very much.
Mr. Weaver.
Yeah, when I first saw this first blush, I didn't know if I liked it. The more I've studied it, the more I like it. It's a unique design for that kind of a space, and the creation of the spaces is great. Had a concern that we faced a while back on another project, and that was having an open space, in essence, in a tunnel, where the buildings would be too compressed, and you've got high buildings on each side. But from what I scale off, and there's places 35 to 40 foot wide, and the main where the pool is, there's almost 80 foot wide. I forget what's the length of this room or the width, but it's a pretty good size, which I'm sure will work good. Two things I wanted to know. One, I presume that if you're in the podium and you go down any of those stairs to the outside, you cannot come back in through there, right? Or else you'd have safety concerns. So you'd have to have a keyed access to get back up in there, outside, or go inside to the interior and go up, right? Through the lobby. And second, if you go into, if you're a guest and you're going to visit somebody there, you're not going to park in the retail. Are you going to go down into P2 to the residential area if you're visitor parking? Or have you thought that for yet? Okay, forget it. You haven't got that for yet. Okay. But I just wondered, I drive in, I know somebody's going to live there that I know. I wonder, where do I park? What was the other concern? Not a I do love every unit in there has an island kitchen, right? Even down to the 686 square foot. And that seems to be an important feature that people like, the islands. So I think it's good. There's going to be a lot of lucky people getting to live there. I presume Burger King will be invited back in as a restaurant on the first floor? Maybe? We'll have it. Burger King's been there a long time and does well. But I can see a lot of individuals that work at the hospital. What's wrong?
Nothing.
I just saw you.
I was just
something else.
pondering that thought of...
Well, I imagine a lot of the hotel employees will live there. I mean, imagine you don't have to pay anything for gas in a car. Just walk out and across the street, you're at work. Seems like it'll be a natural. And then if you can get a quick lunch there at a Burger King and some other on the restaurant, that area trying to think how many restaurants are around there. Not many. So a couple good restaurants in there would probably do big business, day and night. So like I said, it's a unique design. When I first looked at where where Central and San Fernando come together, I almost thought I was looking at the Glendale Federal Building up here in Brand, that point going out. So that was my first reaction to it. I like it, and I know you're going to do refinements on it, but boy, it's a doggone good start for that area, and I sure liked hearing you saying you love to be here because the Americana's coming. We've tried to sell the public in this community on the fact the Americana will be a catalyst to bring other people like yourself into the community. That's nothing but a plus to Glendale. So, congratulations.
Mr. Yusefian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Chair. I was very long on the last one. I know you were sitting in here. Be prepared. I'm going to be very short. Just our planning person talked about. I love it. I don't have nothing to add with the exception of I'm looking forward when it comes back. I want to see a full material list. That is very important, especially to a builder. Pretty pictures, but the quality of the material is going to make that building come to life and how long it's going to last. As our current mayor said, this is going to be the future historic building. I want to make sure the material is good enough that's going to last in 50 years to become a historic building. The other thing that I want to make sure is you have in your planting diagram, you're showing all the trees that go all the way around the perimeter. Those are all city street trees you're showing them. A lot of those trees are not there, so I want to make sure that when that project is built, those trees are going to end up there. Because we see projects, they show all the city street trees, they built a project, they never put the trees in, they go, hey, it's city tree, let the city put it in. And if you take all those trees out, you barely have anything as far as the landscaping comes on the outside of the building. So I like to see all those city trees in there, and I want you to work with staff to see if they all have to be, I think you just put it in there just for looks for now, whether or not they all have to be the same, or you can modulate them, have a palm tree and a regular tree and a palm tree, like how you want to do it. We have an urban forester, you could work with them. Outside of that, very nice design. I like the way it's designed. Good job, whoever did the design. Bravo.
Thank you, Mr. Yusefian. I will also be brief. I do like the design. I'm glad that it is not going to need any variances at this point. I do appreciate the Sarmiento-esque feature at the apex. It also struck me, Mr. Weaver, as reminiscent of one of our existing landmarks, architectural landmarks. I think it's a great use of that corner. It will make great housing near the transportation center. Hopefully people will not need to drive their cars all around. They could walk to Costco, walk to the hospital, the car dealerships, etc., take the bus, MTA buses, the Metrolink, etc. So I'm very happy with it as well. So if there's a motion.
So moved.
Second.
With no further discussion, this is 6C1. A roll call, please.
Agency members Draymond.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Weaver.
Aye.
Yusefian.
Aye.
Chairman Najarian.
Yes. Next item, please. Any comments? Mr. Weaver.
Two. One, I'd like to put on a discussion of the DiPietro property and its relationship with the Central Park in terms of parking.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Weaver, could you
I
say?
would like to agendize a discussion of the DiPietro property and the Central Park area. The relationship between the two, considering the parking requirements of going almost 6 stories down to provide parking for the corner development. I don't think that's the right way to go. So I'd like to discuss those two in tandem. And
Okay.
secondly, I want to know how General Growth got that oversized sign sitting on their building out there. This agency, as far as I know, never approved an oversized sign for people that cost this city millions of dollars. So how to get there?
What sign?
Mr. Chairman, members of the agency, General Growth had talked to us about a sign variance. It was scheduled for 1st to 5th, and then this 13th, the signs were put up prior to that hearing.
Did they take it down?
We have directed them to take them down.
Thank
and
you.
we'll continue to pursue that.
Continue to try to oppose everything in this city. You really ought to sell it at a bargain price to Caruso and get out of town. That's
Okay. Can that item regarding the DiPietro parking come to us as a general issue, or does it need to be a specific proposal from the...
Just general.
I mean, right now, I think Mr. Starbird will get together with Mr. Lansdale and determine some kind of report to you, because there may be a project pending that ultimately be the subject of
Let me
consideration.
clarify, there is a project, but when you have to go down 6 stories to get your parking requirements, and we may, within a decade, develop Central Park with underground parking, we may be able to get a better deal by combining the two together.
Well, I haven't heard about that project.
Yeah,
I hope they would approach
Well, the
me to take a
DiPietros
look
have
at
called every single one of us. I went out and met with them.
it. They have not called me.
They said nobody else would meet with them. So I went out. I didn't even know I was the only one.
Well, if that's their attitude, they're certainly getting off on the wrong foot with me.
Well, they said they called everybody.
But let's...
But we'll give you an
let's
update.
wait
There
for
has
that
been
report.
considerable discussions with them on various options for addressing their desire to develop their property, and we can give you all a briefing on that.
All I was told by them, at least, and staff can prove me wrong, that the city did not want to discuss Central Park.
Yeah, you're getting half the story.
And I figured I am.
Yeah, you are
That's
not
why I
getting
want
the
to
whole
get
story,
it
and we'll be
here,
happy to give you the full picture.
get the whole picture.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr.
Move to adjourn.
Zippian. Is there a second?
Second.
We are adjourned.